recording. But yeah, before we get into the questions though, but yeah, man, yeah, I read your piece on King Leopold, and um, the I should tell you that the purpose of this episode is the name of the episode is The Three Devils, right? So it's King Leopold, Christopher Columbus, and J. Edgar Hoover. And the the framing of the episode is these three guys are all extremely destructive to the
Mm-hmm.
lives of African people, right? And Native people as well. But if you ask the average Black person, all right, who's worse? Like these three, or or like Hitler, right? They'll look at Hitler on a whole nother level from those three. But actually, these three are our Hitlers, if you want to say. You know what I mean? Those three are guys that we have been more harmed by, right? But because of mainstream, I don't want to say just mainstream media, but because of the education system, we look at Hitler's the worst person to ever live. He killed white people, so of course that's supposed to be worse, right? Versus King Leopold, for example. So anyway, so I'm doing my research on the King Leopold episode, and I've seen your piece, and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna reach out, see if I can get my brother Raymond on the show.
Thank you, man. And I'll say what got me to be able to be covering this. I was in college in Western Washington University, a
Mm,
university in northern Washington, 3 hours up north past Seattle, one of
mm,
the main metropolitan areas
mm,
in Washington. We all should know that. And I remember my dad always stressed to me about understanding where we're from. Because I'm actually a second generation Cameroonian American, by the way. I don't know
mm.
if I said that in any emails or
Yeah,
wrote
you said
that in
that in the
other.
piece. Yeah.
Yep. So for me, it's a little more personal, even though it wasn't my country, it's very close to my country. And as
Mm,
someone that has a name that probably was someone of a white man, because my dad says that my name came from his granddad, that on his maternal side that was probably white. That you get to see that there's a lot of colonization that really did occur in
mm-hmm,
their time. And I was watching YouTube videos a lot about just random historical facts called Thoughty 2 on YouTube. And he spoke about this human rights activist, this human rights violator named King Leopold. And I never heard it at all through my 12 years in the K through 12 program. And I learned about this man back in sophomore 2017. And I said, whoa, let me find out more about him. So I didn't just do the simple Google, YouTube, just, okay, let me just say I know what I'm talking about. I read a lot of things like on the Britannica.com's African. If you look right now, there's a site right now that actually will tell you about the most infamous white dictators in African history, such as Cecil Rhodes, not just King
mm-hmm.
Leopold, other people like that. Even Mussolini had dipped a little bit in Africa. And I said to myself, man, like this is really crazy. Nobody ever told me this. And my dad's been my greatest history teacher, which I'm very thankful to have my dad for because I was able to tell people certain things that they never heard before. That's one of my best traits, I would say. And I was starting to tell people after I started reading more about King Leopold, saying, guys, this guy did more things worse than Hitler. He killed twice the amount of Congolese. Back then, they were known as the Republic of Zaire. That's
Mm-hmm.
what people don't remember. About 10 to 15 million. That's the thing. That's what they're estimating. That's the crazy part that people don't want to
Mm-hmm.
admit. At
Mm-hmm.
least
Mm-hmm.
with, it's unfortunate, I will say, but they know how many Jews were killed during the whole genocide and the Holocaust.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my nephews, he actually started learning about it last year. I think that's when they actually had someone teach them in that curriculum. And the teacher probably, and that's one thing about teachers, if they really want to inform their students, they will, if they know what they're talking about. But that was the only person I know that is in the K through 12 system that actually has learned about another infamous, such as the word infamous, human rights violator
Mm-hmm.
besides Hitler, because they don't
Mm-hmm.
really know anything else. They know a little bit about
No.
Mussolini,
Yeah,
but
Hitler's like the guy. It's like it's he's like an easy person to be like, oh yeah, Hitler, worst guy ever. Like, even when someone's like,
exactly,
when they put someone in the media as like evil, they're like, oh, he's like the Russian Hitler. He's this Hitler, like, so
exactly.
yeah. Um, so yeah, so My first question of my interviews is usually the same. Can you first introduce yourself and tell us what it is that you do?
Oh, sure. Okay, guys. So my name is Raymond Biffingwin. Biffingwin is hard to say. I'll explain why. Because the M is in front of my last name. That's why people
Mhm.
always get confused. I'm a second generation African American that went to Washington University, majored in stats, minor in chemistry, and I work as a pharmacy technician, a licensed pharmacy technician in Washington right now as my main job. And I do as my side job is just I'm just an online content creator. You see me write, you'll see me broadcast games, just trying to just do more in my late 20s than I did in my early 20s. I just turned
Mhm.
25, by the way, guys,
Oh,
on June
I was
15th.
say congrats on in America
Thank
turning
you.
25. Also, happy birthday, man. Happy belated.
Thank you, man. And then I was happy to see on your LinkedIn too, like you've done a lot of stuff in your life. So I'm just trying to
Yeah,
keep
no,
building my
yeah, yeah.
profile because life's all about upgrading yourself.
Yeah, man. Every day's a new day, though. I haven't done nothing today yet. I just woke up, so
Hey man,
looking at it
imagine
every
me.
day. Looking at it every day, like, hey, what you did yesterday, it's over. You know what I mean?
Exactly. You
So,
can't
yeah.
you can't just stay in the past. That's the thing. It's not easy to. And as someone, I don't know if you read manga or you're into anime,
Mhm.
but
I am into. I've really only watched Dragon Ball Z. That's the only anime I really like.
okay,
I'm locked in on, but.
I respect that. But I was reading the manga and it had a great quote. It had great quotes where the main character was talking to his younger self. He said, "You keep saying that you want to be a prisoner of your memories, but yet they're holding you back. Why don't you just move forward from now on?" And it's been
Mm,
one of my favorite franchises for years. I said to myself, "Wow, now that really is starting to hit me eternally
mm,
because the older we get, we do cling on to the memories that were
yeah,
negative." And I was telling one of my best friends from college, we have that really bad ability, like with our stimuli in our brain, to just only remember things that impacted us in a hurtful or sad way, and instead
yeah.
of just trying to move on positive,
Or like
especially when
embarrassing. Yeah.
that's just how you're going to function. Everybody goes through some hurt. If
Mm.
you don't know how to deal with that, then how are you going to be a successful individual in the society?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. That's good advice for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
My second question is, who is King Leopold II?
Okay. All right, everybody. So King Leopold II is the infamous human rights violator that ran Belgium in the late 1800s to his untimely death. And I will have to say 1908. Yes. And what he did was commit one of the worst genocides in not just African history, just globally, that nobody talks about. So when I wrote the piece, I wanted to give the whole background to the beginning to show you of how most colonists slash tyrants how their backgrounds are. They think that, and to reference Cecil Rhodes, the one that founded certain parts of South Africa, you know who that is, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
I could give people a brief
They have
when
this
I
thing
come
where
back in
they think it's their
and
right to take over these countries in Africa.
mm,
Because back in the day, there used to be a thing called race for Africa. And all these big kings, leaders in Europe try to get as much land in Africa as possible in order to provide for their country when it comes to resources. And more land's more land.
mhm, mhm,
And a thing that King Leopold did is he would not actually, even though he never set foot in Congo, Zaire, even though he never did that to the Congolese people,
mhm,
he would get people to do some of the most inhumane things. And that picture, because this is a podcast, so I gotta tell your fans how descriptive
mhm,
of the mutilations were towards the inhabitants that were living there. He would cut your limbs off from the wrist or the elbow to the knees as a man if you wouldn't do certain things, or they'll kidnap the women, they'll threaten to kill the women just so the man can do more work because the men were seen as the ones to be able to do all the hard slavery stuff.
mhm,
And my fat, I it wasn't the race for Africa, it was called the scramble for Africa. I
Mm-hmm.
remember that now.
So
And
King Leopold was given direct orders to his officers to commit these atrocities to
Mhm.
get what exactly?
Huh?
For what gain? Like for what purpose was he committing these atrocities?
Oh, just to work for him. That's really it. When you want something done, you want it done by all means necessary.
Mm-hmm. No, but
It's
I
a
mean, like, what was the thing they were trying to get in the Congo? What resource?
oh, the resources that they were trying to get. Oh man. Oof. They were trying to get just all their useful, oh my god, why am I forgetting now? All the resources when it comes to uh rubber.
Mm-hmm.
Rubber was really, really important back then. And I know it sounds crazy now, guys, but that was one of the main resources in order to build. That's what they used for tires for cars.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, King Leopold, they're from a time where the industrial revolution was going on. So all the processes of how we are functioning now in today's society is built from the late 1800s. So it was a big race just to make sure everybody got on when it comes to infrastructure, just useful fossil fuels, and rubber was one of them. And with Africa, we have an abundance of riches when it comes to coffee, when it comes to just our land. And when those guys wouldn't cooperate, that's why I said they'll get the women be either threatened to be killed or the kids are taken away. So the stuff that we do see in movies, that's why I try to tell people what you see in the movies have actually probably happened in real life because you don't just come off of this with just imagination.
Hmm. And so, can you tell me how exactly King Leopold ended up in control of Congo? I think it was Congo
Thank
Free
you.
State is what he called it, right?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I was waiting for that. So when he got there, it was because I didn't even give your audience the time that he was actually king. So he was king from 1865 to his death of 1909, actually.
Mm,
And he ruled there for 20 years. But how he got there when under the guise of a project in 1876. It was at the International African Association event. He teamed with a famous explorer that helped search for the Free State of Congo. And that was basically him just spying and identifying what would be the next best place to take over in order to get all the beneficiaries of the resources.
mm, mm,
I'm going to also answer the first part of the question. I already did, but I'm going to give even more nuance to it by doing this, okay?
mm,
And once they did that event, the thing is that he was able to get King Leopold the trust of 14 nations in the U.S. because all those all 15 countries, and you can look this up, they actually authorized his claim in owning Congo. So
mm,
15 big countries came together and decided on which country could own a certain country back in those days.
mm,
And after that, King Leopold, he went through extreme measures to get what he wanted.
mm,
Once he had his explorer Henry be able to sort out which was the best country to reap all the resources from. And it's called the Builder King Project, where Leopold requested nothing but tons of resources to be gathered so his country could have better infrastructure, more land in Belgium, and he even used it to build a castle too.
mm. Hmm.
And
Now, I
do you
know
have
there was a
anything
thing
to want to
with
ask?
hands. There was a thing with like the can you explain that to me? With I've seen like a lot of pictures in Belgium, like they had these chocolates and they would be chocolate hands, and there's some correlation between that and the punishment for rubber collection.
Yeah, that one. To tell you the truth, when I noticed that, I didn't look up too much into it, and that's one thing I wish I did because I saw that said, huh, that's a little too out there for some weird reason. I think there's
Yeah,
a correlation in that.
yeah, yeah. Apparently, it's like like you said, the body mutilation would, from what I've read, the body mutilation would also be like part of the punishment would be cutting off hands, cutting off limbs, like you said. And we all know, obviously, that there's this whole thing about Belgian chocolates, but chocolate trees don't grow in Belgium. So Belgium was getting their chocolate from the Congo.
Exactly.
And they ended up having a treat in Belgium that was like chocolate shaped hands or hand shaped chocolates. Uh, yeah, so I'll look into that.
No, man,
but
because it's crazy. Because not
mhm,
to cut you off to the audience, I wrote this piece almost 2.5 years ago, so I'm
mhm,
happy I still remember a lot of this. But
mhm,
there's even still some stuff that I'm learning right now about all these figures because, as to let you know, the King Philip, his brother, actually 2 years ago, he when they were talking about bringing down his statues, his brother said that he shouldn't have his statues committed because you want to know the real reason why he said that?
mm,
He said because he wasn't there to commit the atrocities
mm,
in Congo himself. I told my dad, I said, that's crazy. Just because you don't have to be physically somewhere in order to actually create positive or good change.
mm,
You can
mm,
be far away from something and still be the catalyst or the direct reason for what is going on. And Bill Gates, if you look at Bill Gates, he would always send a bunch of money to African countries for HIV/AIDS research and help. Is he not helping, even though he's never actually set foot in those countries that he's actually been in? So
mm.
it's really funny to hear
Yeah,
that.
it's that's a joke, you know. Like they know. There's no way. Um,
No, and also this right now, a lot of European countries are doing things such as reliefs and programs with other countries that they actually had horrible history with, where they're giving them money for a certain amount of decades because of what they did. That's how
mm,
bad it was.
mm,
This one German commander, he caused a whole big war. It's like the War of Hero. I don't know if you heard of that.
no.
Yeah, it happened in 1904. It was a small region in an African country, and he actually committed 25 to 50,000 deaths in the
Sheesh.
War of Hero. And Germany actually decided to pay 1.1 billion of their money for the next 30 years just to help out that area.
Damn.
So it's crazy to hear how the Belgium government and royalty just a few years back are just not, they don't want to acknowledge all the wrongdoing that they did because they
Mm,
already built their the money off the backs of the Congolese people.
yeah, yeah. I actually only have two more questions. But
Mm-hmm.
the first one, how many people died under Leopold's control of the Congo?
They're estimating about 15 million people, so they're estimating 15 million people, probably way more.
Yeah, yeah. Damn.
And
And
he held it, and he held them in that stranglehold for about 23 years. So he was, even though he was king of Belgium since 65 to 1909, he was there for about 76, 1876, 1878 until 1909. So about 21 to 23 years of a stranglehold in that country.
mhm, mhm. And my last question is, how did his control of the Congo end?
Whew, how control end? I
Mhm,
think personally, between me and you, it was just that he died.
mhm. Had he
That's
not died,
all it
it would have just
was.
kind of continued until he died.
Yeah. He he gave up control technically in 1908 because he wouldn't be persecuted because he lost so many people during the training system. But I mean, that's the real reason. But the damage has already been done.
Yeah,
That was really it.
yeah. The trauma is already there. Yeah.
hmm And
Um, yeah.
just to, do you have any more questions? Because I do have more things I want to state too.
No, you're good to go
So,
now.
all right. So, a lot of these guys, just to let you know, like Hitler, all these guys, like when they control something and they start losing their control slowly, they end up just either killing themselves, dying off, or stepping down from that colony so they don't get persecuted. So that was the latter was the case for King Leopold before he died a year later. And when it comes to the mutilation of all what happened to the slaves, Apparently, almost 1,400 reported dismembered arms were found in a German that was said in a German newspaper. Almost 1,400 dismembered arms
Mm,
in a German newspaper in 1896. Man, that's freaking horrible.
mm,
That's horrible.
same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And the sad part is that if it's happening then, you know it's happening now, just not being talked about either.
absolutely. Absolutely.
And then with King Leopold, since this is gonna be the uncomfortable truth, uh, we're talking about it. We all know when it comes to the general themes of what happened in America with the Native Americans.
Hmm.
So if you think what happened to Indians just happened to them or Native Americans, it was happening to the Congolese people as well. Their lives were compromised. They had a bunch of malnourishment and lack of suitable shelter because people, the militia would give them swine flu, smallpox in order to affect the people that were there. So it wasn't just them threatening and just killing people that weren't working for them. They also did little things to wipe off the people that they didn't think were, suitable for the country.
Hmm.
Because you want the best people that could work for you. So that's what they would do, and
Hmm.
that's how they did it with the project.
Hmm.
And as you see, they still got statues of this man to this day. And that one brave 14-year-old that I wrote in my story,
Hmm.
he did try his best to try to get it removed.
Mm.
And also, there's a lot of statues that need to be taken down too.
Yeah, of course.
Like Robert Lee in what is that in Virginia for the Confederacy?
Yeah, he has
That should be
statues
taken
all
down.
over the South. All
Yeah,
over.
they're literally the spitting image of hypocrisy. Because in this country, one of the biggest laws in the Constitution is Treasury. Am I wrong? In the amendments
Hmm.
too, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And the Confederacy is nothing but a hypocrisy to this country. You're a traitor to the USA. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's it's funny how they're keeping it as their lineage. It's one thing you can keep it in a museum because it's history,
Hmm.
but when you have statues outside of a museum, I just think that's
Hmm. Hmm.
that's the problem.
Yeah, yeah. And about that, actually, Robert E. Lee in the surrender to end the Civil War said to future generations of the South, do not memorialize the Confederacy. So Robert E. Lee actually said he doesn't want statues. So yeah,
And
we know that.
because if you look biblically, you're not supposed to have statues of yourself, really.
And then there's that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that also might have played a part too, because back then when it comes to division of separation of state and church, it was a lot more useful back then. People
Yeah.
can, I don't know, it's not as clear as people think it is anymore, in my opinion. A lot of things aren't as clear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
Well, Raymond, um, thank you so much for this. I am going to. It takes me about a couple months to turn these episodes around. My goal is to have this out probably like January.
Oh, January, yeah, man, that's great. I'm so honored to be on this podcast.
Yeah,
I
man.
woke up at 6:45, guys, just to get ready, just to do this.
Appreciate it,
Yep.
man. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. So I'm gonna let me stop recording.